All right, today I'm covering 3 techniques that you could begin using today to start sounding more confident on your cold calls. This is going to be very different than what I see taught out there. Things like having a positive mindset, the positive affirmations, the Tony Robbins style material. While I don't think there's anything wrong with that, I think people are often looking for a more concrete answer that's actionable, that they can immediately implement. So that's the goal of today's video, is to give you 3 techniques that if you start implementing them, you will sound more confident on the cold calls that you make starting today or tomorrow or whenever you pick up the phone next. So the first one is going to be using assumptive language. And this is such a small tweak, but it makes a massive difference. And what I mean by assumptive language is your language should imply that a meeting is going to be taking place rather than asking if they're free, if they're interested, or if they have time. So a lot of reps will have a great talk track. They'll have the customer, the prospect listening intently, but when it becomes time to ask for the meeting, ask for time on their calendar, they finish saying something like, "Great, I'd love to set up some time next week if you're interested. Are you free Wednesday or Thursday next week?" Or, "Are you possibly free or available next week?" Phrases like this. It's very subconscious, but what you've done is just given the prospect an easy out because you don't sound as confident or as convicted in that next step. So phrases like, "I'd love to set up some time if you're interested, if you're possibly available or possibly free," replace those with more assumptive phrases. Things like, "I'm looking to set up some time," or "Let's set up some time next week. Are you free Wednesday or Thursday?" You can still give them that choice of what day works best for you, but your language is more assumptive. You can finish saying, "Great, I'm looking to set some time next week just to get introduced and aligned going forward. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday?" That's a lot stronger and more assumptive than saying, "Great, are you possibly free next week?" It's a minor difference, but it makes you sound a lot more confident. So pay attention in your own language to examples where you're asking if the prospect is free, interested, has time, and try and replace them with stronger, more assumptive language like, "Let's set up some time," "I'm looking to set up some time," "Either way, I'm looking to set up some time," because it makes it just a little bit harder for the prospect to say no. They can still say no, but it's going to take a little bit extra mental effort because you sound like you really are wanting and expecting this to happen rather than it being optional. While this tweak might sound minor, I have seen results pick up drastically just from making small changes like this. I have seen reps go from doubling to tripling their results by making that one small, tangible, actionable confidence tweak. The next technique is using a downward inflecting tone. So examples of where this comes into play is oftentimes at the cold call opening. If you watch some of my other videos, you know my favorite cold call opening is actually just to say, "How are you?" but specifically with a downward inflection. So I'll do 2 different examples. The first one, I will do a downward inflecting example, the one I like. "Hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you?" "Good, I'm just reaching out because..." So if you listen to that "how are you," it was a very downward inflecting "how are you." Now listen to this one that's more of an upward inflection. "Hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you today?" A lot of reps opt for that second tone, thinking that that's the friendly, polite tone that customers or prospects will appreciate. But in reality, that tone is suggesting that you don't respect their time and that you actually want them to talk to you about how your day is going, even though you just cold called them out of the blue in the middle of their workday and they're probably busy. Or the second one where I say, "Hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you?" That is me assumptively kind of giving them a formality, and what I'm saying under the hood is, "Hey, just give me a formality back and I will go right into why I'm calling and not waste your time." But the underlying tone is that I'm assuming I'm going to continue on with whatever I'm saying and that I don't need their permission. Another example of where this downward inflecting tone comes into play is when it comes time to ask for the meeting, like I did in that last example. So beyond just the assumptive phrasing, you want to use an assumptive tone. I'll do an example again. "Great, I'm looking to set up some time next week just to get introduced and aligned on this going forward. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday?" That's a lot harder for the prospect to say no to than if I use that upward inflecting tone like, great, would you possibly be free next week? I'd love to set up some time if you're interested. I'm exaggerating a little bit there. Most reps aren't that bad with the upward inflecting tone, but you should see the difference. You want to more state assumptively with your phrasing and your tone that you are expecting this next step to happen. And they can still say no, you're just making it a little bit more difficult for them to do so. Finally, the last technique is being more concise with your talk track. There's no getting around this, it just takes practice. So I'll link to an example value statement or pitch, whatever you want to call it, that I've done in another video. But if you watch that, you'll notice that I don't trip over my words once. There's no ahs, there's no ums. This makes me sound more confident and it makes me sound more natural. It sounds like I'm actually speaking from within myself and that I'm not memorized. Even though a lot of it is just I have it down through memorization and practice, when I pick up the phone, I'm not speaking from a point of memorization. It's truly the structure that I use and that I have down, and it makes me sound more confident. But the way to get to this point is to simply practice. You can't get around that part, and you need to be very hard on yourself and not cut corners and truly listen to yourself. Either record yourself, record your calls, practice before you make the calls in your free time, block off time during the day, because you need to be completely fluent and not miss a beat. This is why I preach using a value statement and keeping the structure very similar for each cold call, where you tell them who you are, why you're calling, and what you want, so that you only need to change around a few words per cold call. Based on who you're calling, you can make it more targeted, but 80 to 90% of it will be the same, and you will do the same repetition hundreds, thousands of times. You will have it to the point where it's muscle memory and you will sound extremely confident. So the way to work on these techniques is to just get a little bit better in each category every day. You're not going to pick up the phone the next time and have perfectly assumptive language, have a perfect downward inflecting tone, and be perfectly concise without missing a beat. But if you just set aside 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that is going to add up over time, and you're going to start to get a little bit better in each of these categories to the point where you can tell on the phone where you screwed up on a call. Sometimes you can be like, my downward inflecting tone was a little bit off, or I didn't use assumptive language that time. I asked if they were free or if they were interested. And you'll be able to tell where the cold call went wrong, identify it, and continue working on it. So those are 3 tangible, actionable categories that can actually help you sound more confident and then actually build your confidence over time. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, subscribe. We'd love to have you on the community, and I'll see you all in the next one.